Have you been to the store lately? Seen prices go up? Seen shelves a little empty? Don't worry, we're going to build back better. So I found a little article from Zero Hedge. It was written by Michael Snyder. Now, keep in mind that Michael Snyder is a doom prophet. Okay? Everything is the worst day ever, and he's almost always negative, and the end of the world is near, and it's the kind of person he is. That's the kind of news he puts out. Now, it's not necessarily bad, it just is what it is, so take that with a grain of salt. Now, we're looking at him, and he says today there are 18 signs that food shortages will get a lot worse as we head into the second half of 2022. Now, I'm going to say it again. He always says that the worst is coming, and it's the worst it's ever been, and the worst. But he's not always wrong, okay? And what he does is he links to stories that have happened either recently or a little while ago or a couple of months ago, and it leads to a pattern. Now, what's important is to recognize patterns. So we'll go through a couple of these. These are 18 signs, so he's got 18 bullet points, and we'll just rip through them real quick, and we'll do some small comments to see what we can see. All right, so he says, you think things are bad now. Just wait until we get into the second half of this year. Global food supplies have already gotten very tight, but it is the food that won't be produced during this current growing season in the Northern Hemisphere that will be the real problem. Now, that's serious. Worldwide fertilizer prices have doubled or tripled. The war in Ukraine has greatly reduced exports from one of the key breadbaskets of the world. A nightmarish bird flu pandemic is wiping out millions of chickens and turkeys, and bizarre weather patterns are absolutely hammering agricultural production all over the planet. All right. Now, for those of you that don't dig into the news all the time, I like reading news, and I get it from a lot of sources. Left, right, sideways, doom, happy, unrealistic. I get it from everywhere, so I kind of dig into this. And a lot of you haven't heard about the bird flu epidemic, or maybe it's a pandemic. Now, they have been killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of chickens around the world. There is a bird flu that is affecting the chickens that most people eat. Chicken tenders, chicken wings, chicken patties, chicken nuggets, chicken, everything you can eat with chicken is just being decimated because they have to cull all of these birds to prevent infecting other birds. Okay? So you may not have heard about it, but it's definitely happening. And here's how it's going to affect you. Now, here's his list, and we'll rip through it real quick. The largest fertilizer company on the entire planet is publicly warning that severe supply disruptions could last well beyond 2022. Okay, fertilizer is 100% necessary for the industrial farms that we have now. Okay, fertilizer is made with petroleum products. Sure, it's nitrogen and potassium and all the nutrients that plants need. It's not Brondo, it's the real nutrients plants need. And there is a problem in Europe with natural gas and the petroleum that they got through pipelines that comes from Russia. Well, you may have heard about Russia saying, hey, we're going to knock off the pipelines. You can't have it unless you pay in rubles. Some people pay in rubles, some people don't. Germany, Poland, a couple other countries basically said, nah, we're not paying in rubles. Russia said, okay, no problem. No oil, no gas for you. And they can't buy the fertilizers from Russia because they won't pay in rubles. And the U.S. has told most of Europe they have to sanction Russia because Putin bad. Anyway, the point being is, if you don't have fertilizer, you don't have food. And if you don't have fertilizer now, you won't have food in 6 months. So the summer crops are going to be half, a third. We don't exactly know, but they'll be less. And they don't have a lot of food left over every year. So when there's less than last year, some people are going to go hungry. The prices are going to go up. And then the rest of the people will go hungry. So that's how that works. The World Fertilizer Price Index has skyrocketed. Okay, yeah, prices are going up. Okay, so it's going to cost more to even attempt to grow the corn and potatoes and beets and all the things that grow in the ground. It's going to cost more to get them to grow. Right? It is being reported that global grain reserves have dropped to extremely low levels. Grain reserves are what you need to get through the off-growing season. Okay, you don't grow any wheat in January in Minnesota. It's too cold. You can barely even plow the ground because it's frozen solid. Nothing's growing. So you have these grain reserves. You use them for emergencies, and sometimes they use them for seed crop, and sometimes they use them to feed animals. But the reserves are out. They're low, which means we don't have a backup plan. We don't have a plan B. And if you're not going to grow more and the reserves are gone, well, you do the math on that. You'll figure it out. Number 4, due to the war, agricultural exports from Ukraine have been completely paralyzed. Agricultural exports from Ukraine. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. Incredibly fertile soil. It's been that way for centuries. They produce an overwhelming amount of grain. Wheat, sorghum, all the grains that you need to feed cattle, pigs, people, to make bread. Yeah, they're not going to grow a lot in Ukraine this year. The government has been destabilized. Russia is definitely there. I don't have an opinion if they're making it better or worse. It doesn't matter. Farmers aren't going to grow if they don't know if they're going to be able to hold their fields next year. So they're just not going to. Apparently 25 million tons of grain are stuck in Ukraine and unable to leave the country. Well, it's really hard to get a truck full of grain out if the roads have been blown up. The bridges are gone. Well, that totally makes sense. 5, out-of-stock rate for baby formula in the United States has now reached 40%. Hey, next time you go to the store, go to Target, go to Walmart, go to your local grocery store, go to the baby food aisle. See this for yourselves. The shelves are empty. We have a serious baby food problem in this country. And it's going to get a lot worse. A lot of baby food isn't made in this country anymore. So, you want to know where it's made? If you can find a can, look on the back and find out. Number 6. In 6 U.S. states, the out-of-stock rate for baby formula has actually risen to 50% or greater. I'm urging you, go to a store, look in the baby food section. 7. Searches for the phrase, how to make homemade formula for babies on Google has spiked 120%. There's actually a corollary article to this, and I'll see if I can find it later. But the FDA has put out a bulletin saying, do not make baby food at home. It's not safe. Listen, I got to call a steaming pile of BS on this one. People have been making baby food for babies since there were babies. Breastfeeding is best. I think most people will agree. Baby food is not hard to make. You steam some carrots, you blend them up. As long as you don't go crazy on the salt and the sugar and don't add any spices. We're not going to have nutmeg spiced carrots for babies. But listen, making baby food is not hard. People have been doing it forever. The FDA just wants you to be scared and dumb. So I've got some opinions on the FDA, but we'll leave that for another article. Number 8. We're being told this is a perfect storm as shelves become increasingly bare at food banks all around the nation. Oh, so when you go to the grocery store and it's too expensive or you've been laid off and you don't have money, you go to the food banks. Oh, just kidding. They're out of food too. Getting a little dark around here. In Canada, more than 1.7 million chickens and turkeys have already been lost in the recent months due to the global bird flu pandemic. Bird flu. You're not going to see these kind of bird flu notices on the local news or on the mainstream media, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, blah, blah, blah. That's not important to them. It's Russia, it's Trump. So these are things that they want to push, but not the stuff you need to hear. Listen, if you don't have a freezer full of chicken for an emergency, you're going to find that in the near future, you can't get chicken. You can't get chicken nuggets. You can't get chicken tenders. You can't get wings. You can't, and what is that going to do to Hooters and Buffalo Wild Wings? I don't think people are going to want to pay $50 for a 12 wings on a plate. But hey, we'll see how this works. I don't know. In the U.S., 37 million chickens and turkeys have already been wiped out. Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot. I don't know how many chickens we eat a day. I don't know. 37 million might be a lot. Might be 6 hours worth of chickens. I don't know. I know 37 million is more than I'd want to count. I know having 37 million less of something than we did last week is bad. The two largest reservoirs in California, Shasta Lake and Lake Oroville, have both fallen to critically low levels. Okay, Shasta Lake and Lake Oroville are important because not only do they provide recreation for the local residents, you can do boating, you can do fishing, you can do kayaking, things like that, but they provide irrigation for the crops we mentioned. I got to tell you, you plant some crops and you don't get, as mentioned, fertilizer earlier and as now mentioned, water. Listen, crops don't grow. You need fertilizer and you need water. Now, these two giant lakes in California are also partially responsible for creating electricity, hydropower dams. California, it is quite conceivable they can run out of power and water at the same time. Here's a foreshadowing. In California, they have wildfires in the summer. So if everything's dry and they don't have power and they don't have water, you can fill in the rest. So some communities in Southern California won't be able to make it through the coming summer months without significantly cutting back on water usage. Hey, remember a couple of years ago, you're not allowed to wash your car, you're not allowed to water your lawn, you're not allowed to fill up a pool. It gets real hot in some parts of California. And if you're not allowed to let the kids play with a hose in the front yard during summer break when there's no school, you might have some pretty angry, upset kids. They can only Xbox for so long, all right? Many of the lakes around the world are currently in the process of disappearing because they are rapidly drying up. Yeah, go search a picture for Lake Mead. Lake Mead is, I think, 50% gone, and that was a huge recreational area. And now you can barely get a boat in there on some parts of it. I mean, it's not gone, but it's smaller. Right? Many of the largest lakes around the world are currently in the process of drying up. We got that. Okay. Wildfires continue to absolutely devastate the agricultural land all across the western half of the United States. This weekend, it was New Mexico's turn to be hit hardest. Yeah, lots and lots of drought, lots and lots of no water, of course there's going to be wildfires. Wildfires are frequently a natural occurrence. There are those idiots out there that start them by flicking cigarettes out the windows or leaving a campfire unattended or all the other morons that do moron things. But a little tiny, tiny blaze burning your leaves in the backyard, a barbecue grill that gets out of whack. All these things can just become 100-fold worse. And oh, look, I burned down my entire town because I flicked a cigarette out the window. Droughts are going to be bad. Pay attention to this and pay attention to the stories you're going to hear in the news if the droughts get really bad. What are we at? 15? We are being told that steak prices in the United States will keep rising. Listen, I don't know if you've bought a steak lately, but yikes. I think a lot of people are going to be cutting back to hamburgers, and when they have to cut back to that, they're going to be eating hot dogs, and pretty soon they'll be eating cans of Spam. Steaks, man. It's funny because we're not seeing less cows like we are with the chickens, but cows need a gargantuan amount of grain to eat to become fat, delicious steaks. There's not a lot of grain. We're having grain shortages already, so we're getting less cows. Cows drink a lot of water. A cow can drink several gallons of water a day. If there's less water, it just gets harder and harder and more expensive to fatten these cows up to be turned into food. That's how the process works. And when you're missing some key ingredients, prices go up. 16. Due to hail and frost, the Spanish apricot crop is going to be way below expectations. less than 60 tons is what they're suggesting. And usually you get 110,000 tons. Simple math, it's about half. Okay, you're going to lose half of your apricots. I love apricots. Dried apricots, delicious for a snack at night. I actually have 2 apricot trees on my property, so I'll have plenty. When they fall, I'll cut them and dry them in my little dehumidifier, and I'll have apricots all year long. Maybe you don't like apricots. Doesn't matter. If you like them, if you can find them, they're going to be more expensive. You might not be able to find them at all. If there's only 60 tons and Spain can make more money by selling them to Spaniards and right up the street to France and Italy, they're going to sell them there. Why would you want to risk shipping them across the Atlantic for the U.S.? They're going to sell them locally. We might not get apricots this year. We'll get some from Mexico. We'll get some from California, but they're going to be more expensive. 17. Overall, Spanish fruit production is expected to drop to the lowest level in 40 years. Spain grows a lot of fruit for Europe. It's tropical. It's gorgeous there. They have fantastic soil and a great growing climate. They can't grow fruit this year. That's bad. 18. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall is openly warning that a horrifying worldwide famine is coming. Well, duh. Ukraine grows a ton of food, and Ukraine is for all intents and purposes broken. It might come back soon. It might come back next year. But that's going to be basically 2 years of no crops. So they take this year off. We're not going to get much out of Ukraine this year. Next year, it's going to be a rebuilding year, probably, if the war ends quickly. And then they take some time to get back in the. What about all the farmers that died? What about all the farmers that literally starved to death? Although it's not likely farmers starve to death. Farmers do okay. They know how to grow stuff, and they'll just keep it and hide it for themselves. But it's not looking good. It's not. And the good thing about this article, and I'll link, I'll put a link in the bottom, and I'll put it up on screen. But with this guy's articles is he always leads a link to what he's talking about. These are 18 bullet points that basically says things are going to get a little bit worse. Things might get a lot worse. I'm not saying rush out to Walmart and get 2 or 3 freezers full of food and start survival buckets of food and what, but you need to be aware that this is coming. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck now, it's going to get a lot harder and it's going to get a lot weirder. You need to start going to the store. If you usually buy 2 cans of corn, buy 4. Put 2 in the cupboard. Let it sit for a while. Corn will last about a year before you even need to check the expiration date. Maybe you should get a little dehydrator. Maybe you should get some of those, vac and seal bags, and maybe you should start putting a box of hot dogs in the freezer for emergencies and things like that, because things might get weird. Things might not. The Build Back Better might work. I don't think it's gonna. I think it's going to continue to get worse. I think things are going to continue to get more expensive. Things will continue to get less available, and it's going to get weird. So please take care of yourselves. Plan for the future, because there are a lot of very smart people saying it's going to get weird. There are lots of reasons to plan for the future. It doesn't matter what your belief is. It doesn't matter what your political stance is. None of that matters. This is about taking care of you and your family. Do you ever see A Bug's Life? Even they knew you have to store some stuff for winter. Now, it doesn't matter why you want to store a little extra for the lean times. Ocasio-Cortez has been telling everyone the world's going to end in a couple of years. Doomsday preppers have been saying the world is going to end for a couple of years. NASA says a meteor might hit us every couple of years. We got global warming. You pick your poison. There's 1,000 reasons that people are telling you, oh no, be scared. Pick whichever one you like. Pick none. Pick all of them. But they're all saying, hey, probably not the worst idea to get a little extra supplies, just in case. Because sometimes it rains. Sometimes you get a blizzard. Sometimes you get a tornado. And sometimes you just don't want to go to the store and you need food. Be safe, everybody. If you think this guy's right and things are going to get bad, go down there and hit that like and subscribe one time. But if you think this guy is crazy and you think my opinions of this guy are just off the wall, you hit that like 3 times. That'll show him.